All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear my voice. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Greetings and warmest welcome from here in Taipei, Taiwan. My name is Vivi Lin. I'm the moderator of today's panel, and I'm personally the founder of Little Red Hood, the first nonprofit organization focusing on eliminating peer poverty, peer stigma, and promoting menstrual education and menstrual equity here in Taiwan. And for now, I think everybody just slowly coming into this panel. All right, so some important reminders before we start. About language, we do provide two language channels, Mandarin, Chinese, and English. So if you need Chinese translation, please simply click on the Earth icon below. You will find both Mandarin and English channel. And if you have any questions throughout the event, please leave your question in the chat box and we will pass them to the speakers during the Q&A session, which will be the last session after all the talks delivered by the speakers. And please stay on mute during the whole webinar to make sure that we do not disturb the event by accident. Since everyone is in the channel, I think for now, this is the second webinar hosted by the Garden of Hope Foundation at the 65th NGO CSW. And today I'm very honored to participate in this event along with four amazing speakers from different Asian countries. Let us welcome our speakers. So first one will be Jean Su from the Garden of Hope Foundation in Taiwan. Would you like to wave to everyone? Hi. All right, and we have Aya Yamamuchi from Japan, who is also the winner of the 8th Asian Girls Awards. Hi, Aya.
Hi, good morning.
And the third one, we have Malati Das from Singapore. She used to be the president of the Singapore Council of Women's Organization and has 30 years working experience as a professional lawyer. Hi, Malati.
Hello, everybody.
We also have Dana Zhang, who is a feminist activist based in Taipei. She's also the founder of a nonprofit organization, Flame. They're fighting for gender equal access to technology. Good morning, Dana. Welcome all the speakers. So in today's panel, we will first invite each speaker to deliver a short talk. It will be around 15 minutes and then introducing their projects. After that, we will have a Q&A session in the end. Please feel free to type in your question at any time during the event. And our secretary will help us to collect the questions from the audience and pass them to us and to the speakers during the Q&A session. So before we start the panel, let me still introduce a little bit more about the host of today's events, which is the Garden of Hope Foundation. The Garden of Hope Foundation is a non-governmental and non-profit group established in 1988. It was initially established to help disadvantaged girls and young women, especially girls caught in sex industry, survivors of sexual abuse and domestic violence, and survivors of human trafficking. Today, the Garden of Hope Foundation has actually become one of the most influential NGOs in Taiwan and Asia focusing on gender issues. And so for now, let us welcome the first speaker of today, which is Jean Su. She's actually from Garden of Hope Foundation. She's a specialist of international affairs, and she will introduce to us about how the Garden of Hope Foundation has been working on and how they empower girls. Let's welcome Jean. Jean, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to share this with you. Inspired by the love of the Christ, the Garden of Hope was founded in 1987 to relieve the misfortunes, children, youth, and women. Our vision is to a world free of the sexual abuse and domestic violence. And then why we choose girls' empowerment? As we watch the Taiwanese girls grow up under suppressions, and we recognize gender-based violence stems from inequality. So we believe that by starting with empowerment, girls can finally overcome this situation. And here at the Garden of Hope Foundation, we resolved to help the next generation break limits and achieve their dreams. So to accomplish this, we developed a girls empowerment program. We called it Asian Girl Campaign. Next. And then what do we do then? We hold camps every year to celebrate Girls' Day and remind girls that they have the immeasurable powers that cannot be taken away. We want them to make changes in life. So we hold a power camp every summer vacation. We also work girls' working days by giving them a chance to develop skills and meet real role models there. And lastly, in recognition of their achievements, we hold Asian Girls Awards, as we have done it for 18 years. And next. And then why we hold Power Camp rather than other activities? The purpose here is to help girls to realize their hidden potentials. Like last year, we choose the technology as our topic. It's technology involving and changing people's life. And during the event, participants brainstormed idea for an APP to improve the social issues. Power Camp is this 2 days camp, and the main point is to learn through discussion and hands-on practice. We want to create a special environment, an experience of the sharing and group life. And through this, we can better understand how can we lead on and bounce ideas of each other to create positive change. So that's the reason why we hold camps. As we know very well that participating in the camp is to mimic the connecting oneself with society. And only through sustained communication and interactions can our connection be stronger and our power increased. Next. And at the power camps, we take a holistic approach to empowerment. We believe that these positive trends are connected. So we try to create an environment that focuses us on the whole. And through the encouragement, girls will again encourage you to take action. And then through actions, they will build up the self-confidence. As you can see from the PPT, these pictures, courage grows hand in hand with confidence, working like a cycle. So we believe this process will help them to grow strong and powerful. And next. And last year, we launched our very first technology power camp to encourage Asian girls to hone these special abilities. And during the event, participants brainstormed ideas for APP. And also due to the pandemic, the girls from abroad were unable to physically come to Taiwan. So we successfully used offline and online technologies and invited about 70 Taiwan and foreign girls to come together and form different teams. We aim to further develop apps that can really improve society and collaboration with each other. Next. Like what I mentioned, we launched our very first technology power camp last year, and we invited 70 girls to form teams. Finally, the international team became the eventual winner. And the proposal put forward by the groups was very exciting. It really caught the eye of the judge. And later we will meet Aya, the team leader. She will introduce the whole team and what they did. What we did here is to help the Asian girl to achieve their dreams. And we believe that through encouragement, girls will gain the courage to step forward. And this is what we believe, and we are still on the way. Next. Next. We hope that you can join us and get involved in our plan in the future. And thank you all for listening. And this is the end of my part. I hope you can enjoy it like and feel touched by all this girl like me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jean. It was an amazing sharing. I wish there were events like Power Camp when I was younger. I would definitely love to join. And for now, even more exciting, let us welcome the latest winner of the 8th Asian Girl Awards, Aya Yamamuchi. Aya is currently studying at Tokyo Gakuge University International Secondary School. Sorry for my bad Japanese. Although she's very young if you look at her age, but her passion and her courage for gender equality and ending violence is absolutely stunning. She'll be sharing her and her team's innovative project using digital ways to eliminate sexual harassment. Let us welcome Aya.
Thank you. Thank you to the Garden of Hope Foundation for having me here. I'm very honored to be presenting to all of you today. With that being said, I would like to kick off my presentation about crossing digitalization with sexual harassment through the innovation of teens, for teens, and by teens. Next slide, please. Here in context is today's agenda. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. First, I would like to introduce our group and its history, then the social issue that we focus our attention on, and finally, our solution and thus the project itself. So my name is Aya Yamauchi. I am a high schooler residing in Japan and was recently awarded the Social Innovation Award for the 8th Asian Girls Awards last year as part of an international group composed of girls in Asia. Next slide, please. So here's a brief history. The picture on the top left is the Asian Girl Para Camp that Jean talked about before. And on the bottom is the award ceremony for the Asian Girl Awards. Next slide, please. So currently we constitute girls from Japan, the Philippines, and Nepal, as you can see in the slides. So now that I've gone through a brief history of our origins, I would like to share our main goal that we devised throughout the Asian Girl Para Camp, which is, next slide, please, eliminating worldwide sexual harassment from occurring in teenage victims. Now, as I acknowledge that many of you are very familiar with the term sexual harassment, I would just like to briefly define what sexual harassment means to us. Next slide, please. So we define sexual harassment as the use of explicit or implicit sexual overtones, verbal transgressions, and assaults. This can be ranging from catcalling or to sexist comments. Next slide, please. Here in details are the realities of sexual harassment according to Stop Street Harassment. As you can see here from the statistics, sexual harassment is an international problem. And so we can, for example, in Japan, 64% of women have reported groping experiences. Next slide, please. So therefore, we focused our attention on sexual harassment due to its prevalence. Next slide, please. Throughout the two-day camp, our international team considered the idea of crossing digitalization with sexual harassment prevention. Therefore, we decided our project on the basis of safety digitalization. Next slide, please. Since sexual harassment is prone to occur in any environment, our solution had to be generalized and adaptive. Therefore, we wanted to include two systems in our solution. One is a tracking technology that can visualize reportings of sexual harassment into hotspots and also provide international resources that would universally raise awareness about the issue. Next slide, please. Now, the idea of providing counseling information in its entirety is not new. For example, the National Japan Dating Violence Prevention Network's website, which is an organization that I'm part of, they provide national resources about dating violence, but we have not seen an app that aims at preventing sexual harassment at a worldly scale and moreover towards teenage victims. Next slide, please. Therefore, we introduced Safe Buddy. This is an app that we created as part of the Asian Girl Para Camp. We are hoping to target victims of sexual harassment and teenagers who are susceptible to attacks in public places. Next slide, please. As I said before, the target demographic are teenagers. Next slide, please. Our two main features that we are planning on including is a map that can predict hotspot locations and other sites that provide further counseling information. Next slide, please. Now, this app is not fully fledged and we have just started working on it because we started 6 months before. So here's some of the user interfaces. So these are not really an app, but moreover a visualization of how it looks like. Next slide, please. And here's a QR code if you want to see further demonstrations. Next slide, please. The outcomes that we predict from launching this app is the prevention of sexual harassment, gender equality promotion, and the promotion of digitalization as a method for overcoming worldly social issues. Next slide, please. And so to conclude, I talked about the history of the Safe Buddy group, our missions, and finally our solutions. Next slide, please. And as I'm reaching to an end and I only have a few more seconds, I would like to finally share my thoughts on the Asian Girl Paracamp. Nowadays, the world has become heavily dependent on the internet and electronic devices, and we teenagers have also become reliant on them as well. And from my experience, though, we rarely were taught to use our phones for solving social issues, and I'd only used my laptop and my phones for entertainment purposes, and never knew that such crossovers between social problems and digitalization could exist. So attending the Asian Girl Paracamp and meeting all these intuitive and bright young individuals of my age from around Asia was very helping, was tremendously educational for not only for my knowledge, but also as a person. And with that being said, I would like to conclude my presentation. Next slide, please. Here are the references. And once again, I thank the Garden of Hope Foundation for having me here, and also to the National Japan Dating Violence Network for assisting me. And finally, I thank you all for tapping in today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aya. I personally completely agree with what Aya said about no one can live without technology nowadays. Thank you, Arya, for a rather inspiring talk. I remember when Jean first told me that Aya was still studying in high school, I seriously felt like my heart was filled up by hope and warmness, because she's a perfect example of why we should empower girls and teenagers regardless of gender and encourage them to be aware of gender issues, even take action in such a young age. Because it does not matter about your age, we can still make an impact and make some changes in society and to contribute to the global or local movement of promoting gender equality. So for now, let us welcome our next speaker, Malati. Malati is a well-experienced and influential lawyer from Singapore. She's also the past president of Singapore Council of Women's Organization, as I mentioned before. And today she'll be looking at digital violence and cyberbullying with gender lenses and some case studies from Singapore. With all my honors, let's welcome Malati.
Thank you very much, Vivi, and a great thank you to the Garden of Hope for this opportunity to speak on this international platform. But before I go into my presentation, I want to say to Aya how awesome your presentation and the work that you and your group have done. It's really very inspiring to someone like me. Today, I'm proud to talk a little bit about the Singapore experience in terms of how we can empower Asian youths to end violence through the use of technology. Next slide, please. Now, as far as the statistics in Singapore, as well as worldwide shows, there has been quite a high percentage in terms of digital violence and cyberbullying in recent years. And I think those of us who are familiar with this area will note the types of digital violence and cyberbullying, such as online stalking, revenge porn, doxing, harassment, which includes hurtful messages or threats on messaging platforms or social media, or even posting or uploading embarrassing photos or videos, flaming or roasting and impersonation, and even outing people or exclusion. I will also be covering what are the signs of cyberbullying, what has happened in the cyberbullying scene during COVID-19, some of Singapore's strategies, and some of the tech initiatives that we've used. Next slide, please. Now, I think many of us know that some of the signs of cyberbullying can also be referred to with respect to your normal bullying behavior. Parents might notice sudden changes in behavior, such as the losing of interest in your favorite hobbies or activities, eating disorders, unexplained stomach aches or headaches or panic attacks, or not wanting to go to school, withdrawing from family or school activities, or even expressing suicidal thoughts. In some cases, they might see that you suddenly find a teen getting upset after spending some time online, or abruptly shutting off the device or walking away from their devices. Hiding screens, shutting off apps and games when a parent is near, and a general unwillingness to share information about online activities are also some of the indicators of cyberbullying. Next slide, please. Now, During COVID-19, which unfortunately all of us are experiencing still, it was found that there was increased cyberbullying risk because of the increased online activity. So kids around the world then started to face even increased cyber risk from spending extended periods on their devices while staying at home. As a result of home-based learning and the use of video calls to keep in touch with extended family and friends, and to stave off boredom by playing games on gadgets, we also had children and teens becoming addicted over time to communication and gaming devices. And as a result of this, many of us, as well as the children and teens, may face difficulties in readjusting back to pre-pandemic practices. Next slide, please. Now, the Singapore strategy with respect to how we can cope with this, and this applies not just to young people, but also to adults, are found in the Women's Charter, the Penal Code, the Children and Young Persons Act, and the Prevention of Harassment Act, which is a fairly new legislation. We have taken a many helping hands approach by having multi-level participation in terms of policy, functional, community, and research, as well as involving governments, multidisciplinary practices, agencies, as well as the community and families. It is very inspiring from Aya's presentation to also see ground-up initiatives coming from our young people themselves. In addition to this, we also have invested in training and professional competencies by coming up with manual as well as technological integrated management and training. On top of all of this, of course, public education and awareness is very important. And through this, we do have annual public education drives to raise awareness. Next slide, please. Now, I now want to talk about two tech initiatives. Then I suppose one could say along the lines of the Safe Buddy initiative that Aya was talking about. Ours, on the other hand, has been targeted towards dealing with domestic violence incidences in particular, because there has been an increase of this during the pandemic. We have something called the Community Guardian app, and it actually helps with the use of technology to improve the ability of the community to help trained grassroots volunteers to detect cases and also shorten the response times to provide faster assistance to victims and survivors. This new app improves detection. It allows for faster response and better case management as by our agencies. And it will also help to expand the ability to detect domestic violence incidences and to provide help to victims more quickly. The whole idea is to rope in the wider community to play a part in the fight against domestic violence. Next slide, please. So how it works is this. Grassroots leaders and volunteers will use the app to report cases of domestic violence that they encounter to a community agency. PAVE, which is the agency involved, has administrators who will then use the app location capabilities to find trained first responders in the vicinity to investigate the incident. The first responders will then input the case details via the app, and administrators will then immediately review the details of the case and assign appropriate additional support if necessary. And the victims as well as the perpetrators will then be referred for additional support and follow-up. Next slide, please. So these are screenshots of the Community Guardian app. And this was something that was developed and is now been taken over by the Ministry of Social and Family Development to further widen the use. Next slide, please. I apologize for the blurred sort of tech, but this is basically what the administrator's back-end dashboard of cases reported and the status code and the status looks like. So you see on the left-hand side a map which will actually show the location. You will see the language on this side, which basically will give an indication as to what kind of language ability is required to deal with the matter. You will see location, you will see a brief note, and then you will see what action is to be taken. Next slide, please. Other than that, we have also initiated the National Anti-Violence Helpline, and this is Singapore's first national integrated initiative dedicated to calls related to abuse and violence. So what it does is that it eliminates the need for callers to navigate multiple helplines. It prevents confusion and having to repeat your story to several different agencies. But at the end of the day, the most importantly, it enables a faster response time. It is basically a 24/7 helpline that is operated by social workers, primarily in English, which is, of course, the language of business in Singapore. But we also recognize the need for other languages, and therefore, the helpline also operates in Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil speaking, with professionals available if needed for those language abilities. Next slide, please. So to summarize, because I would like to leave time for question and answer, what I've covered is basically the challenges of Singapore's cyberbullying scene. I've also dealt with Singapore's existing legal protection framework and its adequacy. I've highlighted the fact that we have both legal and community agencies to deal with these issues, the need for awareness and also dispelling the myths of cyberbullying is very important. But most of all, what we are committed to is ensuring that resources and solutions are available to meet the challenges and the recent trends brought about by technology and the pandemic. And I cannot underscore enough the need for all of us in the community, not just law enforcement, not just the legal community, but every one of us as responsible bystanders to contribute to eradicating the issue of violence. I also want to shout out to Aya and her group for the app that they have developed, because I think that has certainly given us food for thought. And certainly what we want to see, I think, is this idea, spreading wider than in our respective countries, in our respective regions, and to be able to globalize and all of us benefit from the thought leadership that has gone behind this. So thank you very much. I've come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Malati, for your thorough sharing. I think cyberbullying and digital violence, especially those among younger generations and those related to sexual assaults and sexual violence, has raised a really high level of public concerns in recent years. I'm sure everybody is very familiar with this topic, and it has also been one of the most difficult issues yet to be solved in this era. With Malati's sharing, we do see the importance of collective involvement of public or let's say governmental sectors, private sectors, and civil society. And since Malati is a rather well-experienced expert in the field of tackling digital violence, shall we invite Malati to give some more advice to Aya for her future development of the app or other initiatives related to digital violence on sexual harassment? Malati, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think, well, first of all, as I've already indicated, I think just as an initiative, what the use of digitalization, in fact, what we are basically doing is using the same platform on which the bullying is taking place to actually help the survivors. So I think that's a fantastic initiative. So Aya, what was it that led you and your team to actually decide that the app might be the way to go, as opposed to maybe more conventional ways of help, like say a hotline, or published materials and all of that? Would you like to share that with us, please?
Well, first of all, we really wanted our initiative to be targeted towards teenagers, and we all shared our own opinions of what really teenagers really wanted, and we kind of focused more on the technology side because, for example, in Japan, a majority of teenagers, even if they don't have the physical abilities to own a phone, a majority of our teenagers do own some sort of electronic devices, and we thought that since sexual harassment is prevalent and also digital, and since electronic devices are also prevalent to this day, we thought that those crossovers would be a really good fit.
One of the challenges I find with, of course, any kind of resource or any kind of help tends to be funding. You know, how do we continue to fund the research that's necessary to fund the tech? So as an example, the community app, the Community Guardian app that I mentioned was a collaboration for Singapore of 3 different groups: the Infocom Media Development Authority, and PAVE, which is the social agency, as well as a learning technology company called the Kaiden Group. And they helped to develop this app on a pro bono basis. Would you share with us, let's say for listeners who are listening in, how would you go about trying to persuade someone to buy into something like what you and your team have developed?
Well, well, some ideas that we encountered were contacting our own organizations, because we have 3 countries involved, which means 3 organizations, so it's a pretty nice deal. But some other factors that we tried, we are thinking of, is using crowdsourcing, because for example, in my school, a lot of our past projects in our school activities have been funded through crowd sources such as GoFundMe. And so we believe that having a wider audience to support our cause would be more beneficial than to just target our app towards specific organizations.
Yes, I think that's a fantastic idea, and I wonder whether or not, for example, you know, educational institutions, schools, you know, ministries, you know, dealing with issues with respect to youth, or law enforcement agencies might also be possible sources of funding for something like this. What would be your thoughts on that?
Well, an idea would be, of course, to ask my organization for them to get like a funding from the government as part of their NGO initiative. So that I think that, so those ministerial agencies can also be a way to get some funding. Thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic. The other area which I thought I wanted to ask you a little bit about is that in the course of the project, did you think that this was something that was equally relevant to boys as well as girls? You know, the use of the app. Did you get feedback on that?
Oh, during the Power Camp, we had to present our idea, and one of our team members, she really pushed for the idea of having the app available for everyone, especially the LGBTQ community, as well as, of course, males as well. And so we didn't. Of course, the app may look kind of more feminist, may kind of look more like a girlish tone, but of course we hope to encourage boys as well, because they may not really be, they may not really know the actual ways to prevent sexual harassment, and so we wanted our app to be targeted towards teenagers and not just a specific group.
Yeah, that was what I found really attractive about the app, because it was inclusive. I think it didn't make assumptions that cyberbullying was only something that was experienced by girls, that there are actually various other communities who will benefit from this, and which, so I liked that part of your sharing very much. So I think at the end of the day, you know, good ideas, there are no monopoly on good ideas. And I think what you had and your team have done is really, really commendable. And I certainly would be very excited to have you, Aya, come and speak to, some organizations in Singapore, and to some of the schools, whom I know, and some of my friends in groups that actually have been dealing with, violence against women and girls, as well as just generally, violence, because this is certainly a very exciting project. So I meant everything I said about wanting to see this not just go regionally, but as well as globally. And I want to thank Garden of Hope for having, found you and your group, and sort of shone a spotlight on this wonderful work that you have done. I'm pretty sure, we're going to see tremendous inspiration. I know we have about 5 minutes left. I really shouldn't be monopolizing this conversation, because I'm pretty sure there are questions that people in the audience would also like to do. So I'll hand the time back over to Vivi. Thank you very much for letting me have this opportunity to do a bit of a talk show with Aya.
Thank you, Malati, for your thorough comments. I think one of the things that really inspired me myself when I was studying in college at the University of Edinburgh is that people do not assume sexual harassment would only happen on specific groups, but also making sure that, it's more inclusive to everyone, and making sure that everyone is aware of the help that they can get if they actually encounter things like sexual harassment or violence on campus or in a wider area. And now let's move on to our last speaker of today's event, Dana. So Dana is a feminist based in Taipei. She has a deep involvement with the queer and LGBTI movement in East Asia, and is currently the founder of FLAME, which is an abbreviation of Feminist Leadership and Mobilization on the Age. They often work with unprivileged women and try to increase their access to information technology and long-term care technology and to agricultural technology. She will be sharing the challenges of girls' full participation in public life. Let us welcome Dana.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. As with this special Mac, I cannot hear myself. Okay, so good morning, good evening. So I'm Dana. I'm the executive director of a local feminist organization, Feminist Leadership and Mobilization on the Age. In short, it's FLAME. I want to thank the invitation of Gardens Hope, because I feel it's a big honor to be part of this panel. The panelists actually record the theme of what we're the theme we're discussing. Because I think I see the audience were amazed by Aya and her amazing work. But what I want to say, another thing I want to highlight is our fabulous moderator, Vivi. Because Vivi just mentioned Aya is young, but Vivi herself is young too. I think Vivi is at her 22 years old. Yeah, but she has done a lot of amazing things. And it's a pity that Vivi do not have any chance to share more about her work today, but I really encourage you to check Vivi's organization. I'm always amazed by what she has achieved. So, so today I will share something about gender-based violence online, which can also be called digital violence or cyber violence. And I want to share how this kind of violence that challenge became the obstacle for girls' full participation in public life. Next, please. Okay, so FLAME is a new organization, and we work on gender equal access to technology. As we see an increasing population are being marginalized due to their limited knowledge of technology, their limited capacity of using technology, and their limited access to technology. And in our project, we focus on three different kinds of technology, which have been mentioned by Vivi. So today, I only focus about one of our projects, which is the access to information technology. We work on gender-based violence online because we see it actually negatively influence girls' access, not girls, gender minorities' access to information technology. 2020 has been a super challenging year for all of us, no matter where we live. we had to work at home for months, for almost the whole year, maybe for another whole year. And when we at home, we try to maintain our life with all different kinds of assistance provided by information and communication technology. And the public service were further digitalized in the past year. For example, like in Taiwan, we were encouraged to make bookings for masks during the pandemic. So I think now it's very convincing to say that digital space and access to digital space is an essential part of the access to public life. Okay, so, but the thing is, when we talk about access to digital space, the meaning can be different in different contexts because it's very context-based. Because in global context, when we talk about this term, the first thing that came to my mind is always about the access to digital devices and the control over the devices. Because in some contexts, girls cannot afford mobile phones, and generally speaking, women and girls have much less access to internet compared to men, and in many families. I'm not talking Taiwan, but generally in many families, girls may not have their own smartphones without the supervision of their families. So I will see gender gap in access and control of technology is severe. However, the context in Taiwan is a little bit different. I will see the access to technology in Taiwan for girls, for children, are more than ensured. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. So do you know the average age of children when they have their first phone in Taiwan? I give you 5 seconds to have the answer in your mind. Next page. It's 10 years old. Did you get the right answer? Is it higher or lower than your expectation? Next page. Okay, so this number came from a survey conducted by the Children Welfare League Foundation in Taiwan in 2019. And the answer was contributed by 1,542 children. Around half of the children are girls, and 82.7% of them have their own phones. Around 90% of them have their own social media accounts. Actually, in Taiwan, children not only have their own smartphones, but they also can enjoy free Wi-Fi at campus or in most public spaces. Some of them even can enjoy free unlimited data plan. So I will say children are exposed to digital space in Taiwan at very early ages. Next, please. However, the space they are accessing are not equally safe. To some extent, the digital space reflects the diversity of physical space. And so gender minorities may experience harassment, assaults, bullies in digital space, just like they do elsewhere. Even worse, the information and communication technology just escalates traditional gender-based violence. For example, spreading intimate images without consent has existed for years, for decades, ever since cameras became popular. But information and communication technology just speed up the transmission of the images dramatically. In a few seconds, the images can be shared around the world. And it is almost impossible to withdraw all the images if the photos are shared already. The gender-based violence also take many different kinds of forms, ranging from online harassment, public shaming, to the desire to inflict physical harm, such as assault, sexual assaults, suicide, or the induced suicide, murders and induced suicide. So the complexity of this violence actually contribute to the difficulty in dealing with these issues and supporting the victims. We see emerging violence in actually with years of efforts in Taiwan. Taiwan has established a set of comprehensive laws that covers almost different kinds of violence towards women and girls, such as Gender Education Equity Law, Sexual Assault Crime Prevention Act, and so and so. But these so many laws can still not cover these new forms of violence. Taking cyberstalking as an example. So cyberstalking is a harassment that happens through online channels. It's usually planned or sustained for over a period of time. Sometimes it will develop into physical stalking. However, in many cases, it will not. But no matter it became or not became, it will bring a lot of damages and stress to people who suffer it. And it's a huge problem for the mental health of young people. And another thing about online violence is we have this, because the name is the online violence. So we thought it's just online, but with the popularity of smartphones, it's not just online. It can follow the targets wherever they go, and it can come anytime. This is very different from the traditional violence. We had one case in the southern part of Taiwan. So 12 years old girl refused to go to school because after she was bullied by her classmates for almost 3 months. So the classmates just forced her to witness, just posted the abusive comments and forced the girl to witness the writing of the words. After 3 months, this kind of violence online actually created similar harms as traditional bullying in campus. And the last thing I want to say, gender-based violence online not just create actual harms. Actually, it contributes to the rise of misogynistic culture in digital space. We have another case in Taiwan. So 2 girls, they established a public page on Facebook for advocating the body positivity, promoting the acceptance of different bodies, regardless their size, physical ability, appearance, race, and so on. So the girls just posted videos, images, articles, sharing reflections on this issue, and as they are girls in big size. However, their page was later attracted attacks from haters after they shared how unfriendly the public transportation space are designed for people with different size. So the haters just posted abusive comments, negative sexual words, which brought a lot of pressure and negative impacts to the both girls' mental health. However, it's very hard to stop the attack like this and hold accountability of the haters, because many of these haters were using fake accounts, and some of them even live outside the country. And actually, this kind of violence is called trolling, and it is regarded as the rise of, just as I said, misogynistic culture in digital space. But definitely, it leads to the reality that girls are hesitant to share their opinions openly in digital space. So what shall we do with this issue? And in some families, actually, in some families, they try to control the usage of the girls' uses of technology. But this kind of thing reminds me of the familiar discussion like many years ago, like are we protecting women or are we protecting women's rights? Are we protecting girls or are we protecting girls' rights? Because if we want to protect girls' rights, how can we limit their access to technology in name of protection? So I think the question should be, how can we empower and support girls so that they can be prepared for the potential risk, so that they are fully skilled in dealing with issues like this? Please. Okay, so yeah, so that's why our strategy is empowerment, just like the topic of this panel. We use 3 different kinds of strategy to achieve this goal. So first is acknowledgement. So we think it's very important for girls to acknowledge what they're confronting in the digital space. And in past 2 years, we have been working on introducing the concept of gender-based violence online to Taiwan, combined with local cases okay, and I think we were very lucky because the government has been paying serious attention on this issue, and the Ministry of Education actually gave several statements on multiple platforms last year on this issue, and they also encouraged the campus to do a series of public education on promoting discussions like this in last year, which is very good, which is super fantastic for NGOs like us, because we were able to have direct conversation with students. And the other thing is capacity building. We think it's very important to facilitate girls with skills they need, such as digital security. And this year, we actually will work together with the Foundation of Women's Rights and Women's Rights Promotion and Development for the development of a site of teaching toolkits on this issue. And we're going to conduct a series of workshops on digital security in the next 2 years. And the third thing is participation, because I think, internet governance is a big issue. And we believe girls' participation in this whole process is very important. And but definitely it's a very ambitious goal. And I think it needs the collective work with different stakeholders. And the conversation of different parties, just like this panel, is very important. Next. As a newly established organization, we are still exploring this issue, and we are looking forward to continue the conversation like this in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for the comments at the beginning. And our office in Taiwan are actually in the same building, my organization and Donna's organization. It's called NPO Hub, and we're very lucky here in Taiwan to have such a fantastic hub full of people passionate about sustainable development goals. And since my organization has also been working closely with primary and secondary schools here in Taiwan for gender education and menstrual education, we have also realized that younger generations are exposed to digital world way earlier than us. It's sometimes very shocking even for me, because we're actually just like 15 or 16 years old older than them. but they're so much more familiar with technology than comparing to us. And I think I personally had heard Dana's speech for quite a few times, but every time I listen to her speech, I can always hear some new information and perspectives, which amaze me a lot. And especially the question of whether we should protect girls or protect girls' rights. I think this is a question that has been a struggle and a hesitation for a lot of activists, social workers, and NGO workers when working with gender-based violence and digital violence affecting girls at a younger age. So with all these questions and fantastic talks that delivered by our 4 amazing speakers, I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of questions now. Please feel free to type in your question if you have any questions for our speakers in the chat box, and our secretary will pass these questions to our speakers. And I personally have a question that I want to ask all the speakers. So I'm pretty sure that there is going to be some difficulties and challenges that you have faced throughout this journey of being a feminist or being a gender equal rights activist. And so what are the difficulties that you have faced, and how do you overcome these challenges? Maybe Malati or Dana would like to answer first. Or Aya? Or Jean?
Well, I mean, our project has only been started for about half a month, so it's pretty fresh. So of course we have some difficulties. For example, our team is based from all these Asian countries, but it's hard to get a consensus on these meeting plans because we all have school, we're all students, and also the internet connection. And sometimes we are in a conversation and then we just freeze and we end up going nowhere. So of course we have those challenges, but overall we have a really lovely, warm community, and we're hoping for to enhance our project in the future as well.
I completely feel Aya, because when I founded my organization, I was still studying in the UK, and my local team here in Taiwan, they have to work with the time differences as well as, technology problems. So it's always been, half of the meeting, middle of the meeting, and then the technology got crashed. So then we have to end a meeting and then pass it on to the next day. And it's been really hard for, founding an organization or working on projects when you're still a student, because you have to take care of everything all together. So I'm very amazed by Aya. Hopefully, good luck for your project, and we are very looking forward to when you actually develop the app, and then people in different Asian countries can actually use that app and contribute to that. And best wishes for you to get the funding as well, to make sure that it is well implemented. Right. So other speakers, maybe Dana or Malati or Jean? Have you guys ever faced any difficulties or challenges throughout this whole journey? And it's going to be definitely very inspiring if you could tell us how you overcome these challenges.
Okay, maybe I'll go first while Dana is thinking. I would describe the whole experience in 3 words. The journey for any person who wishes to take on any kind of challenges. I have 3 words. The first is aspire. So you must be really, have goals that are sometimes much bigger than what you can imagine. The second word is perspire, because it's always hard work. You never can expect, the journey to be easy. So you can expect to sweat a lot while you're working. And I think finally, if you do achieve some and make some headway, and this message is particular to Aya, then I think you inspire, which is really what I think all of us are feeling here today. So at any point of time in your journey, I think we must always remember these 3 things. It requires commitment as well. So Vivi, I'm very excited about your organization, and I see in the chat that we have some information. I would honestly say I haven't, it's been a while since I've been to Taipei. I think it's been a while since any one of us have traveled. But I've always been extremely inspired by Taiwan's aspiration in sort of promoting gender equality I think I was back there speaking in a forum sometime back during my SCWO days. And I'm always very, very, inspired by the thought leadership that you have and that your government agencies as well as your NGOs have involving both men and women in the journey. So I think that is very important as well. I think when all of us think of being feminist, we shouldn't exclude other groups in the discussion because everyone has a contribution to make. So these are just some preliminary thoughts. I'm pretty sure Dana has much more inspirational things to share with us, so I should stop talking now.
Thank you, Malati. Warmest welcome to Malati for coming to Taiwan when COVID's over. We will be very happy to see you here in Taipei. And definitely, if by any chance, it's possible for us to go to Singapore, we would definitely love to meet you up in Singapore as well. So Dana, do you have anything that you want to share with us?
I think the biggest challenge for me to establish this organization is to explain the mission to the others. Because I think the questions I got most is why access to technology is a feminist issue. Because why it has gender, it's a gender issue. And so actually gender-based violence online is easier to explain because gender-based violence is a typical feminist issue. But the other two, like the access to long-term care technology, access to agricultural technology, always make people confused. And I think it's a typical situation that many feminists are confronting because we always try to explore new issues. We always try to see rooted reasons for injustice in the world. And so I think that's something like on the one hand, we need to work on our issues first, deeply. And on the other hand, we need to do a lot of public education to convince more people to believe that these issues are related to many gender minorities' rights and equality. And so I think that's the biggest challenge I have confronted, and that is something I'm still working on.
Thank you, Dana. I think I personally can highly relate to the difficulty that Dana mentioned, because for us communicating with the public about, there are actually people around the world, even in Taiwan or in a lot of different Asian countries who cannot afford menstrual products. And these actually put them into difficulties with getting into schools or, performing their daily life and all of that. And one of the sentences that really inspired me during my journey of being a feminist is that you have to name it before you can change it. So for what we have done is that we try to name things and making things into infographics. So it's a lot easier to communicate with the public and raise their awareness, making them aware of, oh, this is actually an issue that's happening in the world. So then they can actually feel and see people around them having that difficulties and actually, take action and be involved in those movements and try to make impact locally. So after that question, still another reminder. So if you have any questions, any participants in this forum, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Okay, I see one question from Lenya. So Lenya is asking, Dana and others, do you know if there has been any impact of the remnants of cyberbullying posts in the sense that unlike spoken words, harmful posts with persisted on technological platforms until it is taken down by the poster or removed by an administrator? So Dana, would you like to answer this question, or any other speakers feel free to pop in as well answering this question? While Dana is still speaking, I would also like to invite our expert in cyberbullying and digital violence, Malati, if you have any comments or thoughts on this question as well.
Well, I mean, my knowledge is of course limited to the laws in my country. But with the Protection Against Harassment Act that we have, one of the remedies that can be done fairly quickly is requiring the poster or even the administrator to administer what is called a takedown notice, which means that you can immediately have something that has been posted removed. So it's not just a question of taking the poster to task in the courts, but actually ensuring that you try and mitigate the harmful effects of it. But of course, I think Dana will, of course, counter this and say, anything that you put up on the internet actually does remain there for a very long time because of the way, just the nature of the work. So the law, unfortunately, has to catch up with technology on this. But that's just one of the remedies that I think many jurisdictions have to ensure that these things are taken down. But of course, I think the harmful effects continue to linger. And this is why I talked about why it is important for support to come in, and also for there to be more care on the part of parents and educators to see the signs and ensure that the necessary support groups are involved and help is given to those who are affected.
Thank you, Malati. Donna, do you
Yes.
have any comments on?
Sorry, because I was trying to find a report established by the UN Rapporteur on free expression like 2 years ago, but I didn't have enough time, but later I will share the link. I think it's related to a very sensitive issue, like controversial issue around gender-based violence online, like the free expression vs the hate speech. So what's the boundary between the two issues? And also, it's also another related to another issue about the censorship. Like, who has the right to do the censorship? Is it the government or is it the private sectors? Actually, like, for example, like on Facebook, it is the Facebook who do all the censorship. And so Facebook is the owner of all the rules on its own platform. Like, for example, like sometimes it may be a good thing, because if you report and Facebook may delete all the things, but sometimes it will feel very difficult to advocating any issues sensitive. For example, like I tried, there was one time I cannot post any post about immigrant workers on Facebook, because it's regarded as political issue, which is not proper for this platform. And so I think the thing is, when we talk about those haters' comments, like what we want, who we want to, like who we want to work together to do this censorship, who we want to give the right to do the censorship. So I think that's something we have been discussing in the process of internet governance. Like, it needs collective participation, not just from the big techs, but also not from just the government. It also needs the opinions from NGOs. It needs the opinion from actual users. So actually, this is really great question, because it's touched something that the internet, the open community, the open tech community, and the gender-based and the women organizations have been discussing. I will try to find the report, because actually that report has stressed the boundary between free expression and hate speech. And also, the special rapporteur shared his opinion about how to do censorship. So I will share it later in the chat box.
Thank you, Donna, for the thorough comment. I think I'm personally still processing with who do we want to work together with when facing cyberbullying, and who are the people that we want to give power to when trying to put up a censorship or trying to protect people facing gender-based violence. I think one of the questions moving on, I would really like to ask all the speakers, what were the actual moment or the things that drove you to devote yourself in the field of gender-based violence, especially those related to technology? Because, I mean, nowadays people are more aware of gender-based violence and more aware of gender issues, but I would really love to hear from all of you, what was the, things that drove you to devote yourself in this field?
Maybe I'll start again. For me, I think a lot of it had to do with my legal work, because as a lawyer, I do see a fair amount of domestic violence cases. As a family lawyer, I saw a lot of that. And I think what troubled me a lot was seeing how gender-based violence had to do also with a woman's sense of, or a girl's sense of self-esteem. If you see violence at a very young age, either as a witness or even as a victim, then you go away from it, thinking that that is how it will always be. The mother or the woman in the relationship always having to be the victim. And then boys seeing that will get the message that they are entitled to behave in a particular way, and then they get socialized to behave in a particular way. So I think it's very important for all of us and in the community. We have a role as bystanders, or in whatever professional roles we have, to make sure that that kind of messaging gets eradicated at a very early age, because it does perpetuate the stereotypes. It does perpetuate the type of concerns that go on to a much more serious concern. So I think sexual harassment is also another form, of gender-based violence. It started off that way, and now it can, of course, permeate into other groups. But for me, that was how the journey started. I became more aware of things. I wanted to see how things could be done. I also wanted to see how we could help the perpetrators. So it's not just a question of helping the survivors, because for a lot of perpetrators, they themselves may have been are survivors of some kind of violence in their life. So, through counseling, through understanding what exactly is the root cause, I think that is how we will all be helping everybody in the community.
Thank you, Malati, for your sharing. I think, especially for the last part about a lot of perpetrators who might used to be, the survivors of some form of violence. I was personally very inspired by a recent award-winning movie that was presented here in Taiwan, which was about, if we do not stop the gender-based violence or sexual violence at a very younger age, these people or survivors of sexual violence, if they don't get appropriate or certain helps and support at the very younger age, then they might, become a perpetrators in the future, and this will be a negative cycle in some sense, and will keep going on. So yeah, if any other speakers who also have comments on the previous question, which was the initial thing that drove you to devote yourself in the field of gender-based violence or digital violence, maybe Aya?
Well, in fact, prior to attending the Asian Girl Para Camp, I had our school had encouraged us to all work. Since it's an IB school, we were all encouraged to do some research, and so I was really fond of violence, especially in teenagers, since I was a teenager at that time, and I really wanted. And since violence in Japan is quite subtle, and so I really wanted to focus put a spotlight on that, and so I worked on researching for teenage violence in teenage especially in teenagers, and that really led me to the idea of the sexual harassment idea towards teenagers. Yeah.
Thank you, Aya. So I think moving on, we've got another question from the audience about cyberbullying. So Akina, sorry for my pronunciation, Akina said, thoughts on cancel culture and its relation to cyberbullying. I think this might be for Dana and Malati. So Dana, if you would like to answer this question.
Yeah, I think cancel culture is something we have been discussing for, I think, like in recent 2 years. It's a very hot topic, and so everyone have different opinions, and someone's really against cancel culture. But for me, I think it's something that helped the accountability of some people, because I think there's one very typical case that show how this cancel culture how powerful this cancel culture is Me Too. It's like we call on someone's name and we work together and we share our tiny power to hold the accountability of this big person. Because in many cases, we feel the gender-based violence, there is the power hierarchy within the social structure. However, there's something about cancel culture, some negative things about cancel culture is when we try to fight against the monster, there is the risk that we become another monster. Because we see when we do this cancel culture campaign, we see so many abusive words that used to be target ours, but now we're using the same words to target others. So I think cancel culture is something powerful, but we should also be careful about how we use it and the boundary when we use it. So that's my opinion. But I really feel that's one powerful part about internet.
Thank you, Dana. I think it's also another, hesitation and struggle for a lot of frontline workers and people that are passionate about gender issues is where do we draw the line when we are trying to tackle violence and while at the same time, protecting the survivors, but at the same time not being another abuser if we violate the use of power. So Malati, if you have any comments on this question as well.
Sure. Maybe I can give the another perspective. I agree with everything that Dana has said. I think the difficulty with coping with things like cancel culture is, who is actually. I mean, you're being called upon to make a judgment, right, as to whether or not the behavior in the first place is in some cases, the behavior that is being called upon or that is being protested against. May have some general, it could be something of general importance. So most of us could probably agree that this is not something that we would see, for example, sexual harassment. But I think the danger that Dana talks about can also be seen in doxing, right? So doxing is one of the other forms of cyberbullying when somebody has decided that, they're going to be a vigilante. Right, they see something that happens online, and then they realize they feel that, look, this was wrong. I'm now going to take up my sort of crusade, right, against the perpetrator, and they then start, exceeding, I think, the bounds of, freedom of speech or expressing your views about things, and in fact end up attacking the attacker, and I know of many of those type of cases. Aya may have a view on it as well, because it's another form of cyberbullying, and I think that is where the pendulum swings, too much to the other end. So I think these are all things of this generation. And then I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think the answers are as straightforward as a simple yes or no. It requires us to really dig deep to see what is it that is bringing about this kind of reaction. So doxing, it could be seen as a bystander wanting to do something, but when we are bystanders, we need to be responsible as well. We shouldn't be reckless, and we shouldn't end up causing more harm, to the situation than we can. So those are just some thoughts.
Thank you, Malati. So, Aya, would you like to comment a little bit more on this question from a younger generation's perspective?
Well, I totally agree with everything that Miss Malati said. I agree that we tend to be we tend to not really know what's going on in the internet, especially teenagers, when we are really heavily influenced by, for example, celebrities and what they can say about the other people. And so I really feel that it's important to always have the mindset that the unbiased mindset of not really going to the extremes of harassing someone just by their without having yeah. Sorry, I got a bit confused.
Thank you, Aya. I think we have another questions from the audience. Could the speakers please share with us if there is any effective way to influence people? For example, when you initiate a powerful campaign or app, how do you widespread the idea and let as many as people know it as possible? I think this question is perfect for Jean, especially she and her foundation actually initiated this power camp, who discovered Aya, such young feminist with powerful thoughts. So Jean, if you'd like to comment on this question.
Thank you. It looked like we are, the Garden Hope are holding the power camp, and we are empower these girls. But actually, what's happening is when we are doing this, it's more like these girls are helping us to step forward because we are seeing the world through their eyes. They are just kind of, teaching us what's really going on, and you should keep eyes watch this. So I feel empowered every time when I stay with these girls. So, and as for Aya, I think she is very open and very sweet girl, because every time we have some meeting to attend together, and we have to discuss about a lot of details, and she's always very, happy to see me, and every time give me a very warm greetings. And when we are go through very detailed things, she never get bored. And so I feel I really enjoy the process. And so I would like to say thank you, Aya. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your wonderful presentation, and to all of the speakers. And as we are going to have another summer camp soon in July, so I would like to invite all of you who are interested in join us, girls or young women, Asian youth. You are all welcome to these camps, and we are going to post our Facebook's website soon, so you will get more details in the futures. And I also like to thank for all the speakers. So they are so amazing and wonderful. I enjoy all the process because they're so being very nice and to help out and to give advice. And I really enjoy it. And so thank you.
Thank you, Jean, for the amazing comment, as well as promoting the events, the upcoming events that's going to be hosted by the Garden of Hope Foundation. All right, so here comes to the end of today's event. We would really like to thank every one of you for being here with us today. no matter where you're at right at this moment, and no matter it's morning, afternoon, or evening for every one of you. I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to all the speakers for taking the time to be here today, as well as your amazing talks. And thank you everyone for your attention as well. We're very much looking forward to welcoming all the outstanding young women who have attended this panel. And feel free to invite young women, beside you in your community to join us in our next Power Camp in 2021. So here comes the moment that we have to say goodbye. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. And thank you so much for your contribution to gender equality as well. Bye.